My name is Patrick Seals. I'm the administrative chief here in the city of Richmond, and I kind of oversee a lot of grant programs. And I just want to say, first off, congratulations to you all for being awarded these grants. I know that you all will find great use. You're doing an applause for that. Congratulations. And you all were awarded because you represented the best applications out of all of those were submitted. And so I say congratulations to you for that. I also want to acknowledge that you all are part of our first group that's going to have this funding for 3 straight years. And I'm certain you all are very excited about that. We are also very excited about that because we get sick and tired of opening up grant applications all the time. It's a chore. It is a chore. It slows us down. And so the fact that we can kind of coexist with you for 3 years, and we're negotiating with our finance department so that your POs roll over. So once you get the money, it's easier to get it because sometimes it can be a little raggedy. I know what we're working with, so don't think that I don't. So it gets a little slow in government, and it's a bit cumbersome, and there are a lot of I guess hurdles to hop over. But again, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. We are going to spend at least 2 hours, probably over 2 hours today. So this is like a real grad school class. So what we're going to do is, here's kind of our agenda. We'll do some welcome and introductions. We're not going to pass the mic around for everybody. You all are going to get to know each other because you all are going to be participating in technical assistance classes and all of these other things. So I know everyone has said yes to the grant at this point, but tonight you will know whether you actually mean that yes. Because we're going to lay out all the requirements, and some of you might look at us and say, you know what, I don't want to do it. So it's no shame in that, but we're going to lay out, there's a lot to do, okay? I do want to acknowledge our Deputy City Manager, LaShonda White. If she wants to come up and say hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. Some of you I know, some of you I don't know, but once again, LaShonda White, Deputy City Manager of Community Services. I've been with the city for a very long time, 18 years, from Richmond, but really just appreciate all of you for the work that you do on behalf of Richmond residents, especially our youth. I really do sincerely thank you for the work. I was in the room when the conversations were happening, when they were talking about all of your applications. So just congratulations, as Patrick stated, on making it this far, and the joy you're going to have as you listen to all the things that are required of you. So just smile now. I'm going to take a picture. So smile, show the joy in your faces. But no, thank you again. We really do appreciate it. I want to say thank you to Patrick Seals because he's not going to thank himself. He's been amazing. Also, Richmond resident, 18 years here in the city of Richmond. Are you already? You going to thank? I'm going to go through staff because this is important. Guadalupe Morales over here. She's a management analyst. Look, Richard, come on back. KCRT behind the scenes. You all don't see him. Make magic happen. If you watch city council meeting, he makes magic happen every Tuesday. So thank you, Richard, and to your whole KCRT team. Nicholas Delgado, Kaylin Burnham. These are the 3 people between Lupe, Nicholas, or Kaylin. They're going to be your best friends, right? You just make them feel like they're your best friends. Even if you talk about them behind their back, they are your best friends. Abdul Black, he's doing something for me that has nothing to do with this, so I had to send him back real quick, but he'll be back. Thank you, Abdul. Dante Miguel, he's at the front desk doing work. See, people are doing multiple duties. And Kim Knockler, who's our risk manager, she's on via Zoom, so thank you, Kim. We appreciate you. I know we have our consultants here from West Ed as well, so we just thank everyone for being in this room, being in this space. And I'm going to turn the mic back to Patrick.
Thank you. And so just to get us started, everyone should have a cell phone.
Smile.
Oh,
You're happy. Thank you so much. I'm not going to get you later after you hear about the data.
So if you have a cell phone, Caitlin, are we set?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to turn this over to Caitlin, and she's going to, I think, maybe take us forward. Are you next? All right. I'm going to jump in just randomly at points, just because I will. So I'm going to let her
Okay, yeah. So some of you already clicked on the or went to the icebreaker, but this is our question. If your program had a theme song, what would it be? So we'll give you guys a second to. The first one was a test for us, so if you had that one in mind, sorry, we already took that one. But yeah, we'll give you a second to do that. Oh, sorry. There you go. Oh, okay. I did see.
I just know that you have to be on our Wi-Fi. If it's not working, you can try and get on our Wi-Fi. I like that one. I like that one. Yeah.
Everyone's still scanning. Oh. Everyone's still scanning? Okay.
There you go.
Oh. Okay, we got some coming in. Okay, someone said blow the whistle. Love that. Work, work, work by Rihanna. Love it. Mañana será bonita. What does that mean, Lupe? Tomorrow will be beautiful. Love it. Celebration, Cool in the Gang. Do It Big. Never heard that song. I'll have to add that to the playlist. Work hard for the money. Lovely day. Gonna fly now. We have a whole play. I'll let you call some out. I'll go down.
Oh, I have a mic. You're good. Keep it on the real. Don't worry. Be happy. I wonder if there's a way to
How do you scroll down?
You have to go on the computer.
Yeah, do you want to? Here, I'll click it. You can call them out.
Okay. All right. I think there's a few more coming in, but we'll. All right, don't worry, be happy, Africa Toto. We are the champions. We are family. I have the tiger. Rise up, lovely day. I think it was a few. Fruits and vegetables, a juice box, jukebox. That one's funny. Moving
We'll
on
have to
up.
make a playlist with all these songs.
Oh, yeah. Curated playlist. There you go.
Love it.
All right, we'll give folks like another minute or two, and then we'll go. But thank you. This is great.
All right, is that everybody?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Sometimes just a theme song can explain everything you do, to be honest. So,
Like we said, we'll make a playlist with all these responses, and then maybe we could find a way to share it out. Okay, so getting to the meat of the presentation. Well, to start us off, how to get paid. So we're going to go into that. Do you want to start us off with?
yeah. So, thank you again, everyone, for coming. Lupe Morales, so Associate Management Analyst with the department. Been with the city now 9.5 years, so almost going to 10. And so me, Nick, and Kaylin will all be assigned to some of you to work more throughout the next 3 years to work with your grant, to get you paid, to do all the invoicing, to go basically through the whole process with you. And basically, the biggest question, the most important question is, how do I get paid? How do I get my grant money? Well, we will walk you through this whole process right now. And that basically requires that you finalize your grant service agreement with us. You wrote an application. That application kind of outlined what your program is going to do. You got awarded. But now we're going to write that into a legal contract. So with that, some terms that we need to review for the grant service agreement. Understand the term of the grant, right? So it started January 1st, so 8 days ago. And it's going to run through the end of 2027. So it is 3 years. It looks like it's 2, but it's 3. We are a reimbursement primarily based grant. So usually what you'll do is, run your grant, spend your funds, and then you'll come to us every quarter with like, hey, this is what I spent the last 3 months. Here's my progress report. This is our invoices or receipts, and then that's how you usually will get paid. There's an option for advance payment, but we'll go into that a little bit later. And another requirement is that everyone does need to do a background check. Again, we have a slide on that a little bit later on what that entails, and if you haven't done that before, a process and an option for you to do as well. All right, and the biggest thing that we do need to talk over first, which I'll talk more on the next slide, is the scope of work. We'll talk a little bit more about what you need to do to complete that, because once you have that, we can move on with a few other big pieces. A few required documents, some of you don't need, and some of them you do. We'll go over that in a little bit. And then finally, that ends up with having your scope approved, having your documents approved, and then ultimately routing signatures, routing the agreement for signatures, which eventually gets your contract executed. So next slide.
Okay, so this is how the contract execution flow will go. So once your scope is approved, like Lupe mentioned, we'll go through the next step of getting your documents approved. So that's your W-9 form, your business license, insurance, etc. A lot of you, once you got approved, you sent in those required documents. So we are receiving those and adding them to your folders as they're coming in. So if there's anything missing from that, we'll definitely follow up with you and let you know what it is that we're missing. I know with like business license, there was some delay with that. So we, on our end, once that's up and like working again, we can check to make sure that your business license is active with the city of Richmond. Also keep in mind, I think we put that in there, that it does, business license do expire at the end of the calendar year. So if you did just get one last year, then you'll have to renew that again as well. So just keep that in mind. Every year you will have to renew that. And then, like Lupe mentioned, once the contract is complete, then we could go through getting signatures. It starts with us, it goes back to you, and then there's a few folks that have to give signatures after that. And then once all that is done, then your contract is executed, and then we can get into the process of having to receive your funds.
I'm going to pause there. So go back. So, go forward. Let me see what you got.
Back?
No, go forward. Oh, cool. Good deal. All right.
All right, yeah. So, as mentioned, the most important thing right now is to get your scope of work ready. I did send out a link to everyone listed as a project manager, I think, earlier this week. But we do have a new way of doing the scope drafting just to save everybody a little bit of time. We do have to meet with all 37 of you, so trying to fit that time in the next few weeks is a little hard. So this will help us essentially get started on your scope before we meet. So we have a link here. We'll send you the PowerPoint after, so you can click on it. It just asks us questions so we can start to create your scope of work for you. Again, outline your program. What is it going to look like every year? Who's going to be involved? Every kind of, we need to know what you're doing in the second week of March, like that kind of detail. So we'll send this. So I'll resend it out again along with a Calendly link. So we have some slots set aside for the end of January, first week of February, for you to schedule time with us. It's only 30 minutes. So we're hoping that you can get the scope filled out, completed 24 hours before, so we can start doing a template and get that started for you before we meet. So it's hopefully a 30-minute meeting. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And the hope is that we start to standardize everybody's contract so it looks more similar versus, everyone has like something different going on. It'll look easier for everybody and we'll hopefully get you guys all paid faster too. So things to keep in mind for that. You'll have the service specifications. We'll know your timeline. What are your outcomes, which we'll talk a little bit more about with Wested. And then more about finalizing your budget for every year. Next slide.
And I'm just going to hop on here. It is extremely important that you all don't phone this in. That you take filling out this form very seriously. Please put your best foot forward. We know everyone's busy, but if you can get this done very well, it'll expedite things on the back end. If you give me 2-word answers on everything, I'm going to have to take 3-4 hours to meet with you, then it'll be a follow-up, and now we weeks later, and we're already slow, right? So if y'all will help me help you, do your best to answer these questions as thoughtfully and as thoroughly as possible. If you do that, we can get these contracts done very quickly. We have a concept, we have a method. Do not phone in this form. Please, please, please. Do not phone in this form. If the scope isn't right, you don't have a contract. If you don't have a contract, you don't have funds. And the longer that process takes to get to finalization, it only extends the delays that you already know are going to be there. So please, please, please take this form very seriously. Look at your applications, draw from them, spell out specifically, and I'll give you some examples of what we're looking for as it relates to these responses. I want to be able to read your service specifications and literally be able to walk into the room and see programming happening. I was talking with a group of an organization yesterday, and I said, so what do you do? They said, we put smiles on people's faces and raise hearts. I said, I don't know what that looks like. We had an event, and we put smiles on people's faces. I said, what does that mean? When you're pitching your idea, like the emotion of it matters. What you're entering into is a legal agreement with us. You don't have to sell me your program. You want. What I'm interested in are what are the details. I said, oh, so you had an event, you invited 35 young people between this age and this age. At the beginning of that event, they were engaged in games and activities. Then they did breakout sessions, and then they did one-on-one sessions. And then on the weekends, they did this thing for 2 hours. But if it was a second Thursday, they did this thing. They also had mentors, and these mentors had this training and this specifications. So when you talk like that, I can, in my head, read that and literally walk into the space and see your programming. But telling me that you are uprooting systemic stuff and changing hearts and minds and creating pathways, that's all great language, but I don't know what it looks like for a child or a parent. I don't know how to evaluate that, right? So I want the details in this thing. That's what I need. That's what matters to us, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Awesome. Oh.
And if folks are familiar, we used to have like 2-hour long sessions, sometimes longer, where we would do this all together. So that's what we're trying to get through, is not having those 2-hour long sessions with you on Zoom. No matter, of course, we want to spend time with you, but that's a long time to be on Zoom.
I was just going to say, too, also important to have this done first is we can't get your insurance approved unless we got your scope of work approved. So that's the only way that our risk management can look at it and be like, this looks good. Like, you have the right coverage, the right policies. Sometimes you might need more. Sometimes you might need less. But it helps inform that. So we can't get your insurance approved until we have this. Not moving forward. All right.
Question?
Oh.
2 slides back.
So if you're gonna do questions, you're gonna have to speak in the mic. So
Okay, can do.
Okay.
2 slides back, I noticed that you said the agreement for signatures is being routed to the project manager. For my particular nonprofit, the project manager listed on the grant is not our administrative contact. So I've been getting all of these emails forwarded to me. Can we get an admin contact added? That wasn't a part of the grant application. So I'm the signatory, but my coworker is going to wind up getting this.
Oh, okay.
Contract
you can
for
let us know when we
execution.
have the scope drafting meeting who to route it to.
Okay.
I have
shared that
usually
over email as I've submitted
Okay.
things, and I'm still not getting emails from y'all.
Okay.
So
Okay. All right. Let us know. Okay.
Well, I'll
So-
make a note of
I'm
that
sorry.
to follow up.
So I'm going to jump in there. So I hear your comment, but I will also say this: on the application, we asked that the project manager in our info sessions, we said list the project manager who will be managing the agreement. So if that's not who you place there, then that's not who we're communicating with. And if you attended our info sessions, that was the direction. The project manager should be the one that can answer all the questions and navigate this process. If you placed yourself, that's why that was the case. Now, what we can do is this is what we ask for, is that you be patient. We are going to correct this issue. We're not going to correct it today. We're going to have scope drafting sessions. When you sign up for the scope drafting sessions, that is when this will be rectified. So please be patient with us in this process. What we don't want to do is get bombarded with a bunch of emails saying switch here, switch here, switch here, because that won't be efficient for us. So till your scope drafting session, if you would oblige, forward it to whomever you need to, but during the scope drafting session, that will be the time to clear up any inconsistencies, any communication things. That will be the moment that you'll do that. And I will also add, going forward, and we'll get to it, we're going to have a system, a CRM that'll allow for updates in that way a lot more fluidly. I don't want to. Is it related to this?
Yeah, I just want to say the project manager may not be able to the project manager may not be able to sign contracts.
True.
So that's
True.
probably the issue.
True. But in DocuSign, which is what you'll get, the project manager has the capacity to then route to the signatory. So if you've utilized DocuSign before, you can always forward it to the person that it needs to go to. But it is during the scope drafting session that you can give us who the executor will be, and we'll get to some of those details. Thank you.
Okay, so we kind of brushed over this, the required documents. Do you want to start off with? Go
we
back
have
and forth.
more slides on that.
Okay. So just to go over again, the W-9 form, if you're not registered as a vendor with the City of Richmond, the vendor questionnaire, if you're not registered as a vendor with the City of Richmond, your business license, like we mentioned, it will expire on December 31st, 2025, and then your insurance, which we're going to get into, I think that's coming up next, which will go into like Lupe mentioned, your scope of work will help to inform like what some of that insurance should look like. Like you said, sometimes it could be less, but oftentimes like it could be more. So just keep that in mind. That's how insurance is based off of your scope of work. And we will get into that.
Yeah.
After.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so again, for a lot of folks, it might be pretty simple. You've done it before. If you've ever gotten a grant from us, even 10 years ago, you should be in our system. No need about filling this out again. If you haven't, do please turn these in to us as soon as possible. Something to keep in mind for the vendor supplemental questionnaire, there's like a second page to it. Even if the answer is no to that, say no and then sign it, because oftentimes we get it like that and then finance sends it back to us and it's like a whole process. But go ahead and fill that out. Also let us know too if addresses have changed, because sometimes we'll get ready to pay someone out, send a check, or do direct deposit, and then it turns out the address changed. So if anything like that has happened, let us know. Or feel free to email us and be like, hey, you know, last time we got a grant was like 8 years ago. Our address has changed. Can you check for us if it's this address or, you know, another one? And we'll be glad to check it for you as well. And then last thing, we do have a copy of it, so you don't need to send it in, but you'll need to turn in your 501c3 status letter, which also you need to submit for your business license as well. But I'll talk about that in the next slide. Yeah, so for this one, everyone does need to sign up for a City of Richmond business license, unless you are the city. So they expire a calendar year. For that, make sure that you do have to submit or note that you are a 501c3 status organization, because the fee is a lot less. You do have to submit your determination letter as well, and then your application is approved. I do recommend that you check if it's your first time doing it or if it's expired, to check your status. Again, we'll send this PowerPoint to you all. Check to make sure that it's active. If it's not active, then it means there was like some error or something that did not go through on your business license application. So let us know, check regularly, and then let us know when it's approved. And that way we can make sure to update that information in our system. Cool. And then we're going to talk more about insurance. But for that, we do have our risk manager, Kim Knockler, who should be on Zoom right now.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and to present. So just as an introduction, I work to evaluate the compliance with the contractual insurance from your contracts, and I'm here to help streamline this process. So when we go through, we see the certificate of insurance, and there's an accord form. These are just some examples of what the insurance could be. Now, the screen that we're looking at now, the Type 5 insurance requirements, this will actually be inside of the contracts. I would encourage you to help be successful and move past the insurance review part to give this portion, at least the minimum of this portion, to the insurance professional that helps you place your coverage, because this is exactly what risk management will look at when we get your insurance back to determine if you've met the requirements for insurance so that we can move you past it. Some of the hurdles we've seen in the past is that we'll get things back from the insurance and it doesn't meet all the requirements that are within this document, and then it slows down the approval and it increases frustration. I would like to just go back to some of the things I heard. You can be successful with this portion. The things that we're asking for at the City of Richmond are actually very routine. However, your insurance professionals need to have notice, okay, this is what the City of Richmond is asking for. So if we look at that very first page, it just talks in general about what is needed. And then if you look at the second page, which starts off with required policy conditions, actually, I believe it's actually on, the second page. That's really important there. It will discuss the additional insured endorsement. It discusses things such as the requirement that it not exclude or completed operations. So give this to your insurance professional as soon as possible to avoid delays. If you look at the next page, it's also discussing the ratings that the insurance should have. So insurance companies have to have a specific rating at the city of Richmond. It requires an A or better. And some of the things that I've seen are placement with coverage that might be an A minus, and that can hold up or be an impediment to approval. So if we go to the next slide, please. Okay, here, thank you very much. This is actually what you will receive back from your insurance representative. This is basically a summary of the type of insurance that you have. And it tells us when we're evaluating, okay, they've met this requirement, that requirement, this requirement. If you look at the second part of this exact slide, these are endorsements, and these come from your insurance agent through the insurance company. These aren't things that you can create. You've got to get them from the insurance company. So that's why it's through your agent. So that's why it's really important to give that type 5 document to your insurance professional. And literally, compliance can be a total of 3 pages. Sometimes it's more, depending on whether or not you're using what we call an umbrella, but these are things that we can get into also. It's important just to remember, if we're seeing what we call an umbrella or an excess, that those same policy conditions of additional insured and primary non-contributory are coming to the city of Richmond for that umbrella also. And that's all documented in that type 5 document. So the next slide would be the PINs. PINs is the way in which that COI that we just saw can be uploaded into. It's an online database for risk management that we use here at COR, and then it goes to what you'll see, those green. Once we get what we want, each part, it moves from non-compliant to compliant. And our goal is to get you to approved by making sure that we have all of the documents. Many insurance professionals are familiar with using applications such as PINs. What will happen is you'll receive an email. That email will have a button at the bottom, and then it will allow you to go into the file and to upload. Please, I understand that this can be foreign for some people. I don't want you to feel discouraged. We're all here as a team to help you get through this and empower you as you work with the children and youth. And I'm very grateful that you do that, and I want to see you be successful. So we'll meet again. If you have more questions, please feel free, to reach out so that we can help. But again, we went through the type 5 document. You'll receive your COI, your certificate of insurance, and then there's the PINs, which we use to obtain documents and communicate back and forth as to what compliance looks like. So that's it for my portion at this point in time, but I'm here for any questions.
Yeah, we have some questions, Kim. We'll pass over to you.
While I'm also walking over to do questions, I want to reiterate, this is a very special occasion to have Kim here. If you have questions, we're going to go to break after this, so please ask them. Insurance is a hurdle. We want to make sure everyone has what they need to get through it.
Thanks so much. If our organization went through insurance review in October for a similar size grant with the city, do we also need to go through insurance review now? And would we be working under the same specifications now as we did in October, or have requirements changed since then?
So the answer is, would you go through the insurance review? Yes, to the first part. And will the specification changes? It depends on what the first part looked like. We have the ability with PINs to clone insurance to make it quicker, because we do have several vendors who have different projects that they work with. So the answer is yes, that you'll go through it again. And the answer is we can clone. It just depends on what this new scope of work looks like to determine, will there be some different requirements. I think the biggest part, because I want to see you all be successful, is those required policy conditions, which are in that Type 5 document. Those, no matter what your insurance requirements are, those basically stay the same. So really just be mindful of those.
Awesome. Oh, another question.
Thank you. Kind of similar question. If we recently submitted our insurance requirements with the city of Richmond listed as an address, do we need to list a different address for Richmond Department for Children and Youth on a new policy document?
Great question. So that COI at the bottom where it states certificate holder, if it has the city of Richmond, it has the address, we can take that. Where you'll see on some of the documents where we're asking for additional insured, if it says the city of Richmond, we can take that also. And that goes into some of the contractual insurance requirements in the individual policies that are submitted to us and some of the wording. But that city of Richmond, it's fine. We'll go ahead and take that.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Perfect. Seeing none, I do believe we're going to go into we're going to continue? Okay. We're going to keep rolling on with our consultants, Wested.
So Wested are our evaluators, and you all are going to get to know them so well. They are responsible for evaluating the department. They're also responsible for evaluating the fund. They're responsible for evaluating the programs and the dollars, right? And it's not a gotcha situation. It really is, what is the story that we have with regards to who you're serving and how you're doing and what's going well, right? That's really their role. Additionally, they are going to be meeting with you. They're going to be holding technical sessions. And I can tell you that as a consequence of this grant, in the past, you all provided summary statistics for your reporting. We're now moving to a client level data reporting, and they are going to help you all navigate that. If that's something you've never done, then they've developed some forms and templates and spreadsheets for organizations that maybe don't have software that tracks per client data reporting. They're going to help you navigate that with some basic tools. And so I've spent, has it been over a year at this point? Okay. So I've spent over a year with Nicole Torrado-Strayer and Alexis Grant. And so I'm going to have them come forward, and they're going to walk through their portion and their engagement with you.
Thank you. Thanks, Patrick. Do you want to use the stand or hold it? You can hold it. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Patrick, for the intro. My name's Nicole Torrado-Strayer, and I'm here with my co-director, Alexis Grant. We're so excited to have the opportunity to meet all of you. It's really special to be here in person. So we're just going to take a few minutes to do some introductions, and then we're going to just jump into what you all can expect to hear from us and all the requests we'll have over the next few years. Okay. So over the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to just start with some introductions, like Nicole said. We are going to provide an overview, very high level, of what the RFCY evaluation looks like. And then we'll go a little deeper into those specific components that we'll be asking you all to help with. And then we'll talk next steps, what you can expect from us, and all the lovely emails that you'll be getting in the future. Okay. So we're going to start with another icebreaker for our team. So this is the same Mentimeet link as you had earlier. And if you need it again, you can scan it here on the screen. And in the Wested folders, we have the link there as well. So our question is, what is one word that describes the impact that you hope your RFCY funded program will have on the Richmond community? So I'll give folks a minute for that before we click on over. Oh, there we go. Are you all able to submit now? Okay, great.
So we'll give folks a minute. If you can do one word, a phrase, if you really struggle with that, is fine. We'll see what's coming up here. Okay, what's the impact you hope to have with your program on the community? So I see mental health, vision, connect, inclusion, eco-literate, access, opportunity, healing, transformative, hope. I love this, and I'm very excited to see the final word cloud. So let a couple more responses come in. Achievement, wellness, self-care, inclusion, empowerment, success, harmony. Okay, great. I'll pass it over to you.
All right, we will move forward. Feel free to keep submitting these words. They're really inspiring, and we'll circulate this. This is nice to have to keep us all grounded in this vision. So for those of you who have not heard, I'm going to move forward so I can actually read a little bit on this slide. If you haven't heard about our agency, we're WestEd. We're a nonprofit organization. We are headquartered in San Francisco. We have an office in Alameda as well. Alexis and I come from what we call a content area. It's sort of a division within the organization called Resilient and Healthy Schools and Communities. We do a lot of cross-sector work. We're evaluators, obviously, but we focus, Alexis and I, particularly on mental health, child welfare, housing, community safety and well-being, of course, education. Our vision as an organization is that one day, all children, regardless of background, identity, or circumstance, will have the opportunities and conditions they need to learn and develop to their fullest potential. This is our project team. So as I mentioned, Alexis and I co-direct this project. We're very lucky to have some wonderful colleagues that are evaluators and technical assistance providers. So you'll be hearing from us over the course of this grant period. We have a standard email, so hopefully it won't be too confusing. But you'll see different faces at different times depending on the engagement that we're hosting. And I will say I'm local. I live and work from my home office in Berkeley. Alexis is coming from Atlanta. We have some additional California staff and folks sort of around the country. So just a little about us. So here's a very high-level overview of the kinds of activities that we do for the department as part of the evaluation of the fund. Alexis is going to unpack these, but just very high level. We provide evaluation technical assistance for all of you. We'll have information about sort of the cadence and the topics that we'll be covering. Those are optional, just an offering for folks who have an interest in the different topics. Of course, we collect evaluation data. We integrate partner insights into the evaluation. I'll talk a little bit more about what participatory evaluation means for our team. And we generate annual evaluation reports, and we also create grantee profiles. So this is another offering that we have as part of the evaluation. And again, Alexis will talk a little more about that in a few slides. All right, another Mentimeter slide. This is something we like to put up on our presentations. Evaluation isn't always a word that has super positive connotations. We want to give voice to that. Hopefully, after working with us, folks will feel a little differently. But we'll just take a minute, and for folks to I think we're doing one word about what comes to mind when you hear the word evaluation. Hopefully some positive things, but we recognize that's Not always the case. Oh, do I click? Okay, click. Sorry about that. Short phrase, right. Okay, there you go. Accountability, oversight, assessment, a lot of work. Sometimes it does feel that way, hopefully not in this case. Impact, correction, learning, information, telling our story, assessment again, opportunities for growth, efficacy. These are all great words, jargon. We've been working with Patrick to adjust our language sometimes, so call us out, please. TDM, test, more accountability, feedback, time consuming, eyes on you. Well, these are great. Big brother watching, all good reminders for us. Thank you for all of this information. Again, we take this really seriously and appreciate your candor. So thank you for that. All right, we are going to just start the overview with a little bit of information about how we arrived at the plan that we'll be sharing and the actual evaluation itself. So as Patrick mentioned, we've spent about 1.5 years supporting the department. We took about a year to work with grantees who were funded in the last cycle and different community members to generate the evaluation that you will learn about. This is just a visual we like to include. The top sort of depicts some of our values that help us to remember that this is all about the community. Why are we doing this work? We want to make sure that children and youth from Richmond are getting the kinds of supports and services that they need, right? So who better to help us understand whether this is happening, the community here. So it's in partnership that we eventually arrived at this equity-centered evaluation plan that really is our framework and helps us stay organized and also gives us opportunity to use shared language, understand the different activities and expectations for all of you over this grant period. We depict this bottom portion, the process piece, as a map. Again, this depicts our planning process, which took about a year. I'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute. But the work was rooted in relationships. This is a wonderful way to get started, for you to see our faces, to understand a little bit more about how we operate. And we'll have more opportunities to connect in different ways. But over this period, we held a lot of listening sessions to get a sense, again, here are some of these concerns. We don't have the capacity to do a ton of work. We already do a lot of evaluation, and really to understand what that looks like. Think about the ways that we can work together to gather data that's meaningful for the department, meaningful for the community, to ensure that these dollars are being used appropriately and they're having an impact. So thinking together about what that would look like, centering community experiences. And for us, I think these last two, now I'm going on and on, but these last two panels are really important, that our team recognizes that we make mistakes and we want to hear from folks. We really solicit that information to engage in responsive action. We are not the experts in the room. You all know better than we do about the work that you're doing. So really recognizing we need to hold that continuous improvement mindset as we move through our work. This is what our planning process looked like. I won't spend a ton of time so we can actually get to the evaluation itself. But again, it took several months to co-design all of the instruments that you'll learn about, a survey, focus group, protocols, and so forth. And that was based in a lot of learning that we did to understand all of the work that you're doing. We piloted all of the tools, again, in partnership with different grantees who gave us a lot of feedback and helped us really figure out the best way, not just to measure things, but how to collect the information as seamlessly as possible. And here we are. We've arrived at the plan, and we've begun to collect some data. So I will hand it, I think, back to Alexis to walk you through, the work.
So rather than starting with the instruments, I want to highlight what the participatory evaluation looks like in practice for you all. So one of the things that we've built into our annual cycle, which you'll see later on, is that we'll have annual meeting-making sessions where you all will be invited to take a look at the data that we're collecting as a part of this evaluation. So it's not just a take kind of relationship, but also, hey, here's the data, and what does it actually mean when we're talking about the impact of the fund? So that's going to look different from year to year based on the questions that we might have, the questions that you might have, as well as the questions of our youth co-evaluators, which I'll talk a little bit about. We'll also be meeting periodically with the RFCY Oversight Board, which we also did as part of our planning process, so that will continue on. And we have co-evaluators of youth who are going to be a part of this new evaluation cycle. I'll talk a little bit about what the recruitment looks like, because that's one of our first asks for you all, is that we're pulling together a group of 15 youth that are a part of your programs or have experienced your programs and the type of work that you all do to help us collect and interpret the data. And this group of youth is going to meet every other month with us online, really more engaged in the understanding of what the data is, what the data means for young people. And for those youth who are interested, we'll also invite them to be a part of our data collection team as well. So we'll get to that when we talk about the data collection and what that includes, but we're hoping to bring as many youth who are interested that are a part of our co-evaluation team to be a part of that as well. So later on, I'll share the next steps in terms of nominating youth, but that's something to look forward to. Okay, so I think this is back to you, Nicole. Is it? Sure. I'll go. All right, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but we talked a little bit about the perceptions of what evaluation is, and this is just to kind of ground us in what it means for us to do this evaluation. So evaluation is a way for us to tell the community members' stories about the program, in this case, the Richmond Fund for Children and Youth, the people who are served by the program, and then the impact of the program on the community. And so one thing I want to stress, and we'll kind of keep coming back to as you get to know us, is that we're not here to evaluate you and what you are individually doing, but we're really interested in being able to tell the story of, like, what does this fund mean to the community? What does this fund mean to your organizations and the work that you're doing? So we want to highlight the strengths and needs of the community, but also providing information to inform strategies and approaches of what's working really well. How are organizations overcoming some of those challenges to serving children and youth? And then ultimately providing evidence for future investments. Okay, so in your West Ed packets, we have a little snapshot of what we have started to learn with the evaluation of the Cycle 1 grantees. And I know we have a number of the Cycle 1 grantees in the room. And so we're excited to kind of bring this data about who you're serving, what that looks like, what is the day-to-day of the programs that are benefiting from the fund, and highlighting it in ways that are engaging and colorful for you all to point to, and as well as for the community to point to, and that the city's investing in this kind of work. So I won't spend a ton of time on this, but just kind of speaking to the theory of change for the fund. Like, what is the fund supposed to do at the end of the day? So we developed this theory of change based off of Article 8 that created the fund and the department, as well as with our conversations from the first cycle of grantees. And so in our evaluation, we're generally aligned with the boxes in the results in the community impact parts of this theory of change. So we're interested in looking across the city. What is the service gap reduction that's happening as effect of this funding? What is the high quality and equitable service delivery that's happening? How are service providers and organizations collaborating as a result of this funding? And then ultimately, what does that mean for the availability of services for youth and the increased supports for children and youth? And then speaking to the big dream, the big goal that we're all working towards is that the children, youth, and young adults are fully equipped to be successful and have safe and stable conditions for them to be supported. Okay, eval questions. Okay, so our evaluation questions align generally with those boxes on the previous slide. So we're interested in looking at how the fund is building the capacity of the grantees, what are the successes and challenges of implementing that programming, how are the funds being used to expand the program reach and coverage, how is the fund reducing service gaps in the city of Richmond, how is it facilitating high quality programming, and how and to what extent are the programs themselves promoting positive outcomes for the participants. So these questions are very lofty. And one of the things that we're building into this evaluation and answering these questions and the data collection asks that we're going to get to in a moment is that we'll be offering these evaluation technical assistance sessions for you all, the grantees. So at this point, we're structuring them to be quarterly open door sessions. You can come to the sessions that are useful to you, as well as offering individual support as needed, as requested, because we know that folks might be in different places or have very specific questions. So today we'll talk a little bit about the service provision tracking and the data, and you'll see the templates from the department. And so our first technical assistance session is going to focus exclusively on that so that we can kind of set up everything before you get too far into the tracking and reporting for this quarter. And then another date to mark your calendar on is February 19th. We'll be hosting a session about designing continuous improvement cycles. And this session is going to be more general, really for you all to come and learn from our TA specialist who primarily works with individual programs and school districts, to take a little bit of a departure from our traditional evaluation work, but thinking about what are the tools that might exist for your organization to use in your own continuous improvement. Okay. So as Nicole mentioned, another offering or output of this evaluation work is a program profile. As you'll see, we'll be collecting data from your participants. And rather than us keeping this data just for ourselves in the evaluation, we want to be able to share this back to you in a way that is useful for you all in reporting, maybe securing other funding, maybe just wanting to share back to your own participants. And so one of the things that we'll be creating as part of this work is a customized program profile that features the data that you all are sharing with the department, you all are sharing with us, as well as being able to customize it with photos, websites, links, quotes, things like that. Okay, so now I'll dive into the specifics. So with all of those evaluation questions, we have really 5 main data sources that we'll be using to answer those questions. I won't spend a ton of time on the grantee reports and service provision data today, but those are requirements that are written into your contract. The department did that for the first cycle of funding, where your quarterly reporting includes a narrative report, as well as submitting information about activities conducted, number of participants served, broken down by demographic groups. So as part of the evaluation, we won't be reaching out to you to ask for that a second time. We'll be working with the department to get that data, but that will be one of the things that we'll be looking at in the evaluation. So what we'll spend a little bit more time talking about in the first eval TA session was what Patrick mentioned, the client level data tracking. So we know that some organizations already have their own client management system, which is great, but we also recognize that some may not have that, or they're starting from scratch or starting fresh. And so we've created a service provision and activities tracker tool that's in the format of a template you can download and customize. We can help you customize if that's needed, as a way for you all to quickly and be able to just start tracking that individual level data so that when the department's asking, okay, how many 6 to 12-year-olds did you serve this month? You already have a template put together that you can pull that number from. So we're happy to share that tool with you all, and we'll be sending out a little more information. And our first TA session is going to exclusively focus on that. Okay, so now I'll talk about participant surveys. So the surveys are designed for, we have a youth survey and we also have a parent survey. The surveys are designed to answer this evaluation question: how and to what extent are RFCY funded programs promoting positive outcomes for program participants? So one of the challenges with this fund, a challenge and a strength, is that you all do so many different types of programs, which makes it challenging for us to be able to say, oh, this is the impact of the fund as a whole, right? So we've designed these participant surveys to assess the extent that the fund is doing high quality program at a very high level. So we'll be sharing a version of the survey with you all, but it looks at things like, what is the environment of the program? Is it a safe place? Do students feel comfortable there? So very high level. Where your programs might be interested in more in deeper questions, and we encourage you to do your own internal evaluations as well. And we're also interested in understanding the positive outcomes for children and youth who participate in the programs. So we have youth surveys that are designed for participants ages 10 and older. And then for those of your programs who might serve younger children, we have a parent survey that maps onto the youth survey with some very similar questions for those that serve programs under 10. And when we did our testing last year, it takes on average 8 minutes to complete, and where we have it available in multiple languages, and we'll be asking you all, what are we missing? So I want to give folks a minute to take a look at the survey we have linked here. And in your West Ed folder, you also have this QR code, so whichever is easiest for you. And I want to give folks a minute to let us know a little bit about your program, how you operate, what are your program dates, and that's going to give us a little bit of insight on when we'll be reaching out to you to talk a little deeper about the participant surveys. So we'll give folks a moment to do that. Should take a minute or two. We'll also be sending out the link to this via email if you're not the right person to complete it. Okay. Can I get a raise of hands who needs a little more time? Okay, we'll give everyone a couple more moments.
What is the data collection windows that you have?
No. Yeah, we have a question.
Wait a minute. Excuse me, sorry.
The data collection preferences that lists the windows when data collection can happen. What if those are? I mean, I guess some of them align with when our program is happening, but not all of them. Mm-hmm. So we have like a cohort that runs May through January, so that doesn't fit. Because I've got March and April for selection windows, but then I have another cohort that runs January through September, which would sort of fit.
Yes, that would be the one. What?
I was just going to grab a pen.
Oh, yes. One, email us, but Where our hopes are to design the data collection windows so that we can kind of do the evaluation data collection in batches rather than having to ask you like, hey, we want to do it now and we want to do it again. Our goal is for you all to only have to do this once a year, and that's all. So for those of you who might have programming that starts and stops in different parts of the year, we want to aim for the spring data collection window as long as you're doing programming during that window.
So we would just not collect data from the other folks? Because it's different, like it's different cohorts of folks, so you're not going to see the same people May through January that you would see January through September.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Our goal is to capture all of the participants who are being served. So in certain instances, there may be more than one administration, but we'll work with folks individually to sort that out. Go ahead. Oh, actually, I'm so sorry. I think we use the mic so that the recording can pick up folks' questions.
So in these questions, if we have programming that does not differentiate between summer and school year, but we offer it during both, I'm assuming I say yes to that, but then it has other questions that want more details, but it's the same. So
yeah, that's helpful. If you can fill out it should skip you to a question that asks which of those sessions typically has the same turnout. If it has the same, we're going to work with you to decide what is the best time of year to do it. Because I know sometimes programs, you might have the same number of students, but you'll be doing a lot more activities during the summertime, right? So we want to work with you all. The survey is really just our first understanding of where you're at, what are the windows, so we can make sure that we're ready when the spring comes, when the summer comes, when those windows come, we can have the survey ready for you all and our data collectors in place and all of that. So it's not, this isn't a final thing that we're going to be using to create the timeline for you.
okay, I have a follow-up question to that then. So because the program that I'm managing it happens all year long, it's the same days, same time. Wondering about programs that maybe it's not that when we have a certain number of kids finishing or starting, but more of like maybe after X amount of sessions we do an evaluation?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We know there's some programs that do like 6 weeks of workshops or something like that. We want to try and do those surveys at like the 5th week, the 6th week. So we're really capturing what people are gaining from the survey or from the programs. So yes, it will be somewhat tailored depending on the program. This is just the initial planning.
So continuing on that thread, if you say yes to the summer and school year programming, it gets to a question about when the program dates start. But if we don't, if it's just a program that runs all year long and doesn't really start or end, but it's a required question, how do we answer that?
If it's already going, go ahead and put in January 1st, 2025.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for that.
I can just add that I did get to the end of the survey, and it says if you have any questions or concerns to put it in there. So I think we can put that in there.
Yes.
So it tags our.
And we do have we have a QR code on the slide, as well as the third QR code on your paper there is for you to send us questions, concerns, anything where you're like, absolutely, this won't work for us. You can send it to us, and our team is going to go through it and potentially reach out to you that way. Okay. I see one other in the back.
Hi, my name is LaShari Johnson. I'm director for the Contra Costa Family Justice Alliance, and we are providing like mental health support, and that is, for a period of time because it's counseling and things like that. So with question number 8, asking, is it different for your summer participants or your school year round through the school? Oh my gosh, my school year participants. I feel like I want to say yes, but then it asks like, well, when does your summer program start? And it's like, well, it's ongoing. But then I'm like, if I put no, I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to write down your organization. We will connect. One note that I do want to also address, I know there are some programs such as yours that might do more individual level programming, not necessarily have a group program day where you're going to be like, hey, everyone, take this survey. So we do have, while we have standardized the administration to be given in that group kind of setting, because most of the programs are designed that way. For those programs that work individually or one-on-one with participants, we have an alternative administration method that might be doing it one-on-one with the student, or depending on the context and how responsive your participants are, having them complete it on their own time.
Okay, good. Well, 'cause we have, let's say, we're anticipating more participants for this particular program or to be getting services. And then we also offer a camp in September, for example, where we have therapists on site and they do like group play therapy and things like that. And those, some of them will be those same participants who saw us maybe earlier in the year, or who may be seeing us after the camp, like November, December, during that time. So I guess I want to complete this. Should I complete this?
Yes,
or
go
should
ahead and complete it.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. All right. I think that's it for questions. Okay. So now we'll talk a little bit about the other two data sources that will go into this evaluation. And these are things that will be coming to you directly for. So we're interested in learning more about the implementation of your programs. So how is the fund increasing the capacity of the grantees? What are the successes and challenges of implementing the programs themselves? And then how and to what extent is the fund expanding reach and or coverage? And so to address these questions, we're going to be looking at the reports and what you share with the department, but we also want to dive a little deeper. And so one of the things that we'll be doing annually is a grantee survey that's going to delve a little deeper into your experience working with the department, maybe your experience collaborating with other partners if you're part of a collaborative, as well as any successes and challenges of implementing programming for the past year. Each year we'll also be hosting focus groups with you all and invite program managers, program staff, to learn more about like what do these programs really look like on the day-to-day, and what does this fund mean to the individuals who are doing the work on the ground. And so with all these data sources together, we want to be able to tell the story of the fund and what it means for all the organizations that benefit from it, but then for the youth, the children, youth, and families who benefit from it, and then ultimately the community that benefits from all of that. So here on the slide, we have just a depiction of our yearly evaluation cycle. We're excited that we're going to see you all for the next 3 years or so. So we're going to kick off with our spring data collection this spring around March and April, and then continue on with that in the summertime for those of you who are doing summer programming. And then we'll typically do those grantee surveys and focus groups in the fall and winter time. And each year, we'll be putting everything together into that annual report that we mentioned. And then, of course, on a quarterly basis, you all will be updating your service provision data, submitting your quarterly reports, and we'll be integrating that into our yearly cycle and analysis. So in terms of what's next, so we have 2 dates to mark on your calendars for upcoming technical assistance sessions. So we have a session on service provision tracking, and then we have our session on designing continuous improvement cycles. We'll also be sharing via email this overview, as well as a shorter document that really gets to the need-to-know information. We'll be sharing the youth co-evaluator nomination form. So if you have any young people in mind who you think would be interested in learning about evaluation, research, data collection, you're welcome to go ahead and start thinking of who those people are, and we'll be sending that out next week. Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about the data collectors per Nicole's suggestion here. So last spring, we had 6 teens from Richmond who are a part of our data collection team. And it was really exciting to see their own leadership and being able to go out into the community in places that they're familiar with and collaborate with the programs to collect the youth participant survey data. So as you'll have noticed on that survey, there was a question of if you want West Ed support. And that support is really hinging on our youth data collectors. So these are folks who participated in one of the programs that was funded, and then they're trained on what is a survey, why are we doing a survey, what are the best practices in administering a survey, and then becoming very familiar with our specific survey. And we work with them to bring those surveys to the sites, help administer the survey. So thinking like helping students read if they need help with that, help filling it out, and really filling in the gaps where we know it can be hard to find a staff member to take 15 minutes even away from everything else that might be going on. So we are really excited to bring youth into that. And the youth also helped us come up with our framework for looking at the quarterly reports and thinking about what are the things that stand out to youth and what are the things that youth want to know about the programs that are funded. So we're excited to expand that to 15 this year and have it in a more regular cadence of meeting every other month rather than just with our data collection cycles. Okay. So the last thing you'll also see in the intro email next week is a link again to the data collection preferences survey. If there's someone else at your organization that's better suited to fill it out, you'll get that link again. I think. Okay, so the last thing is if you have any questions, concerns, ideas, anything you want to send to us, we have a 1-question survey, open response, for you all to share that feedback with us, and our team is going to take a look at it, parse it out, and we'll be putting together an FAQ document or frequently brought up questions or concerns so we can try to address those as well as think about where we can think about where our spaces are to tailor this even further as you are a new cycle, a new cohort of grantees. So with that, I will leave our email here on the slide and pause for any other questions, concerns.
All right. Just want to say thank you again to Nicole and Alexis. I would highly encourage you all, if on the client level data thing is going to be big, and it may be a lift, I would highly encourage those of you who don't have that type of capacity, be it software or staff, to make sure that you show up for that training because it will be a requirement in your reporting. It's a requirement that you're capturing per client data reporting. So we met, they built out a template, an Excel document, it's a Google sheet. It looks really cool if you like data. So I fell in love. I was very excited. It has colors and everything. But please show up for that. I'm going to show up for it just because I'm interested. But the goal was for those that may not have that background or experience, to give something to you all that doesn't require such a lift. And also, because we're going to be using a CRM, that it could be something that you could easily upload into the CRM that aligns. So it's not double duty where you've got a document and then you've got to basically transcribe into some other format. So the online portal is going to mimic the form. And the reason that is because they're going to make sure that it does. So I just want to thank y'all. Now, we could take a 5-minute break, or we could keep going. It's up to y'all. So there are some people that want to take a little break. If you want to get up, you want to grab something else, we're going to do a break. I heard some people keep going. I was a keep going camp, but because I heard a resounding break, we're going to come back in 5 minutes. Thank y'all. 426. Don't y'all run away. We have all your contact information.
All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and call it back. Am I going through? All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and call it back. If we can regroup, please. Can I? How do you get these? There we go. I was like, I don't want to stay still. Yeah. If we can regroup.
Yours is really low, Nick. I don't know. Yours is really low. Hello, everybody. I'm worst.
This one's on. If everyone can please regroup, we'd appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. We want to keep going. We don't want to keep you here too late past 6. That's our allotted time. We're hoping quicker. Thank you, everyone. I hope it was a wonderful break. My name is Nicholas Delgado. I'm an associate management analyst here for the department. I think over half of you know me at this point. For those of you that don't, pleasure to meet with you. You'll be getting to know me very soon. I have the honor of presenting everyone's favorite part. This is how you actually get your money. And so we're going to spend some time talking about what it means to invoice with us, what we're looking for, and how that entire process takes place. So you've gone through, you've done your scope of work, you've gotten your insurance approved, everything's going great, and then you come to us and you say, RDCY, I have my executed agreement, I have everything in place, how do I get my money? What does that look like, right? Well, there's a couple ways this is going to function. First of all, we want to reiterate, for those of you that are returning, this is now going to be a calendar year grant. So the quarter systems are going to be based off the calendar year, with the first quarter beginning January 1st. There are 2 types of payment options that you can receive from us. We're going to delve into them a little deeper in a bit, and those are reimbursement-based payments from us or advance-based payments from us. And finally, something we're going to touch on is about all of the background checks that your organizations have to do. These are going to be thorough background checks, and all organizations need to provide proof to us that anyone who is directly serving youth has been background checked. We have actually set up a portal, and I'm going to invite Patrick to come up and talk a little bit more about it. We have a new initiative with Be a Mentor who can assist organizations with going through the background check process if you need assistance.
Sure. So we, free of charge, to us, Be a Mentor came forward and said they were willing to provide this service. So if your organization hasn't historically done background checks, or you struggle to find people that can provide background checks, they will do it at a cost of about $25 per person. You do not have to use them. We wanted to make it reduce the barrier for some organizations who may struggle sometimes to navigate this process. So this link will be on our page, and you can do a couple of things here. One is your organization can sign up and create an account. It's free, and prepay all of your staff to get background checks through this link. Or, depending on your organization and their capacity, each individual person or volunteer could pay their own $25 for their background check, right? And that background check will go to the organization. I can tell you that you will, as Nicholas said, need to provide us proof. We are going to ask for proof that the people that are providing services have had background checks. So you don't want to linger on this. This thing will shut down all of your money if it comes out wrong. Yes, ma'am. What question?
If you've been with your organization forever and have had a background check when you started, do you still need to do another one?
Yes. Because there's this thing we call years, and they come all the time. And so just because somebody had a background check 10 years ago doesn't mean that they haven't done something in between that time and the last time they got the background check. And so because our responsibility is to make sure that young people are not being exposed to any risk, right? We're going to make sure that you all are doing your due diligence. For some of you, this is a matter of practice, and I hope it should be. If it's not, the reason that we are offering this option is because we are going to be auditing you all regarding this. And so I wouldn't want to create a burden on you and then not provide an opportunity or a solution that you can easily access. And that there's a cost, but it's not cost prohibitive, right? And so, again, there are other organizations and people that do this, but they do this for the school district in Oakland and also in West Contra Costa County. So they're very trusted and they're well vetted. And so we've had series of conversations with them about it. Yes.
Is this an annual cost, or is this something we would do per grant period, or how does that work?
So that's a good question. And so we are going to, so what's going to happen is, at some point, you are going to provide us with a list of the staff individuals that work for you, right? This won't be happening straight out the door. We're probably going to do this August, maybe sometime in late summer, right? So it's not like tomorrow you need to go do this. But we will probably be doing this annually. I'm just going to tell you this is something that we are going to be looking at annually. So we will audit you all annually regarding this. I'm going to where the mic is.
One of our grant has multiple partners, and we also work with the school district. So we go through the school district's process to do background checks to get everybody their badges. Do we have to do a separate process for this grant, or can we use that as
if
our
your
evidence?
organization is already conducting a process where they're checking, that's fine.
Okay.
Right? You will just don't need to provide us proof that has happened.
On an annual basis?
Yes.
Likely. Okay.
Yes. Again, this is an option. This is not, you got to go to Be a Mentor. So hear me. You do not have to use Be a Mentor. You do not have to use Be a Mentor. You do not have to use Be a Mentor. It is an option for those of you who maybe don't have this resource. Maybe historically you've never done background checks because you trust people. Not safe, but going forward, I'm just telling you that this is something. So again, because we will be auditing you, we wanted to provide something that you all could easily access. Please share it with, you don't got to be serving children and youth. Please share it with other nonprofits. This is a good look. If this is something you're not doing, first off, it's safe, but it also gives credibility and depth to your organization when you are doing outreach, that people can feel confident that you are monitoring and policing your own selves, and it's not something that's being laid upon you. And so I would encourage you to move forward in this direction. It is not us hoping to slap you in the back of the head. This is our responsibility, and we want to do our due diligence to say, hey, the organizations that we fund, we have proof that they are doing their best. Yes.
City departments.
Well, we get background checks.
Right.
Yes.
So, but not every year.
Oh, then you will need to.
You don't get background checked every year, but we have to?
Yes.
Or is it ongoing?
Your staff will need to. If they're providing services to minors, right, children and youth, you will need to provide proof annually that those staff have had background checks.
I remember reading that the background check should be covered, the cost should be borne by the nonprofit or the organization. Does that mean if we included it in our grant, that grant funds could be used to
Absolutely.
cover? Thank you.
And to clarify, is it just staff who are on the grant, or is it all staff in our entire organization if they're not on the grant project?
If they're working with the individual young people that you are funding, we need proof that those individuals have had background checks. Now, if you're the accountant, right, you don't need proof of a background check, right? These are for people who are providing direct services to young people, right? If you're the grant writer, you may not need a background check because you're not providing direct services to the young person. But if you are hands-on providing programming, you will need a background check. Yes.
So we do live scan background checks on all of our employees. But we also signed up for subsequent event reporting. So like if I was to get a DUI tonight, it would pop up and we would be notified.
Okay.
Do we still have to do annual fingerprinting, live scan background checks if we signed up for subsequent event reporting?
Well, so then I would want to have a conversation with you about that.
Okay.
Because I would just need to know what the notification looks like on that. All right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all use it. Yeah. We do the subsequent. Yeah.
So what I don't want to have happen right now is people making presumptive comments about what people have access to and what they don't. I'm speaking right now at this moment regarding our requirements. When we have our individual sessions, this is when we can get into the details of some of that. But I don't want to say, oh, we all do. Let's not do that right now. Next question.
And this includes youth staff as well, correct?
Are they providing direct services to other young people?
Some of our youth educators are, yes.
Okay.
In addition to full-time staff as well.
They're paid employees?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to check with my city attorney's office on that. Questions? All right.
Yeah.
So our program utilizes volunteer mentors, and I assume that they would need to be background checked every year as well.
Yes. Okay. I've volunteered for organizations that I don't get paid for, and I was working with young people, and I had to have background checks.
Yeah.
So, volunteer, whether or not they're employed officially or volunteers, if they are in your organization providing services, I will get on the age thing. I'll check with my city attorney's office just for the legality of it. But if they're clearly over 18 and they're providing services, whether volunteer or not, they will need to have background checks. Next slide. Any more? Okay.
Clear to move on?
Yeah.
Awesome. Here we're going to talk about the payments that you will be receiving from us as a department and what that process will look like. I anticipate a lot of questions here. This is essentially going to lead into what your budgets will look like when you are completing scopes with us. So if you have questions on money, please ask them today. We want to make sure you leave with enough information to complete your scopes and subsequently the budgets that you'll be completing. So first, we have reimbursement type payments from us. What reimbursement type payments will look like, and we're going to have a slide that comes next about a new grants management software that we're going to be introducing in this new grant cycle. It'll essentially say, hey, Nick, Lupe, Caitlin, I have completed a quarter, let's say January to March. This is a full report of what we've done. We have templates, which you will be seeing soon. It was included in the scopes that were sent out to you. Please take a look at them. And you'll say, we have completed, there's 5 questions we want you to ask, like how did things go? Were there any problems? These narrative reports are there for you to let us know if there's any hiccups in your programming, right? Say 10 youth were unable to make your program. We're not going to be like, oh, we got you. Your program's canceled. We just want to know so we can understand on the back end why your numbers or metrics may look different. Please tell us what is happening in these reports. It is very important. You will then, along with that reporting, also upload information about how you spent your money. So we're looking for receipts, we're looking for timesheets, time cards, and we're also going to be looking for any invoices that you may have from vendors who are coming on site and working with the youth that you're supporting. We also have information about an end-of-year report. For those of you that are returning grantees, we used to have a closeout report at the end of every year. That is now being shuffled to an end-of-year report. So in December, we're going to have a little bit of a larger report for you all to complete. Let us know how the service year went, how things went at program, and that's when you're going to get your final payment from us, right? At the end of each quarter, we have them broken out, January to March, April to June, and July to September. That's when you're going to be eligible to say, we have completed a quarter, we would like to receive a quarter of the grant awarded to us for that calendar year. Any questions on that before I move on? Actually, we have one.
At what point, what's the due date after the end of the quarter?
Standard process is you have a month after the quarter to submit that to us, and if not, then we'll be following up with you. However, we are really excited. We're going to be talking about what submittable will look like as a grants management software, so we'll get there in a second. Thank you for beating me to it. But stereotypically, we give about a month for you to complete that reporting and submit it back to us. I know, bad words. If we could next.
You mentioned timesheets as part of what needs to be uploaded for salary reimbursement. If we've got people on the grant that are allocated a percentage of their time to the grant? Does it need to be functional timesheets that show specifically how much time they're spending on the grant versus other things, or just payroll journals showing that we paid them?
That's a really good question. I'm going to answer it this way. If you tell me that you internally have $20,000 set aside for these individuals who are serving your youth, and you come to me with a timesheet that says these individuals worked 4 hours this week, 16 hours this week, and this is what they've been charged with this grant, then that is sufficient for us. Does that answer the question?
I think, yeah, it sounds right. Is there like a template or anything?
Yes.
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 There
It's
will be
included
something.
with the scope drafting that will be resent out again today. And we're also going to go over it again with you when you build your budgets.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you.
Yeah.
I had a similar question. It was just that, are we allowed to submit payroll records instead of timesheets as backups for staff time?
Yes, you are eligible to submit. We're very particular about what you can submit back to us. We need payroll pay period reports. So if you are using any of like time management systems, we just want to make sure that we see a payroll pay period report, because if you're just giving me a pay date report, you can retro pay someone whenever for like work done years past. And we need to make sure that all grant funds that are being reimbursed are done within the grant term. So we're very particular about that, but that's fine.
And is match documented the same way? Do you guys require documentation for match?
I don't.
What's the question? There was a 25% match requirement for the
I'm sorry?
No? Okay.
He was asking about the match requirement we had for when they initially applied.
So there isn't there's a 15%, right? So we just need to know that organizations are doing fundraising, and it will be similar to the background check audit, right? We will need you to produce proof that at some point during the year, hey, I got a $100,000 grant. We raised $15,000 this year.
And there's one more over here.
Yep.
For this quarter in particular, since contracts haven't been fully executed, will we be able to invoice as of January 1st, or will we have to wait?
Yes, you will be able to invoice as of January 1st. It is our anticipation that as we're building out your scopes and finalizing this, you are doing work on the program that you said you were going to build when you applied for this grant. Any other questions before we move on? All right. For advance payments, getting into a little bit of a different way that we're going to be paying you out. You can say, once your contract is executed, that you need a portion of your grant to be funded to you. We usually do about 25%. That's the way that we like to do our advance payments. You will say, Nick, Lupe, Caitlin, even Patrick, we have an executed contract. We would like to receive 25% of our money up front. Say you got $100,000, you get 25 from us, right? Until you have spent all of that money, and until you have reported what you have done with that money, you are ineligible to receive anything else from us. So we need to see that all $25,000 has been spent. We would like it to work on the same quarter system that we have for reimbursements, but it is up to you as an organization to say that you have spent all of the money and to show proof of that. And then you'll also have an end of year report. We reserve the final payment, that final 25%, until we see proof that your end of year report and your service year has been completed. Other questions on that? Yeah, in the back.
Thanks. How soon should we expect to receive the advance? We have not received advances when we requested them. And who do I talk to?
That's a fantastic question.
So the most important thing is don't expect an advance unless you have an executed contract. So until you have an executed agreement, so some people are very eager for the advance, and I can understand why. But if the contract isn't executed, and that means the insurance is right, which can be a trudge, the business license is right, the contract has been signed by all the parties, there is no anticipation for an advance. And so if those things haven't happened, if the insurance lapses, right, or something goes wrong, there is no contract. So just because you've been awarded, technically you don't have a contract with us until everyone is signed and you have a purchase order. When you have a purchase order, advance to your heart's content. But please don't become frustrated. It's like, I showed up to the meeting, I scheduled a scope drafting session, where's my money? We don't have an executed contract. And so if I'm in your shoes, my number one push is getting an executed contract. That's my first priority, is get to an executed contract. Because then it really is downhill as it relates to the accessing the funding.
To go along with that as well, Patrick, what's important for us to acknowledge here, if you would like advance payments, your organization will stay with advance payments for the entirety of the service year. If you pick a path, if you want to do reimbursements, you'll receive reimbursements. If you want to do advance payments, you'll receive advance payments. So we also want to reiterate, you understand and sort of use a timeline to anticipate the way your program is going to be flowing if you're doing advance payments, because it may throw off and you may not get quarterly payments in that way. Because it's going to be based on you as an organization and not on us doing a quarterly check-in.
Which is to say you can't submit a reimbursement for your first period and then ask, oh, we need money, can I do an advance? So you got to know before which way you're going.
Do we have any other questions on this before we go? Question?
Oh, hold on.
How long will it take to get the executed contract? Assuming I've already submitted all my paperwork, the only thing that's left is the scope drafting.
Fantastic question. It's up to a couple of other things that we've mentioned previously. We have to finalize your scope of work. We have to make sure that that scope of work is reflective of the insurance that you have on file. It is possible that our risk management team may say you need an increase in insurance depending on what you're doing on site, right? So typically, it could take a couple of weeks if you come ready for your scope drafting sessions and we can get an executed scope of work. However, there are reasons why it may be delayed. And so we really want to highlight that. Insurance, business license, various things can take a little bit longer for you to receive an executed contract. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
Hold on.
We're using the microphones because when the audio
Yes.
is captured, it
No,
goes
I
through the
understand.
microphones.
I understand. We still haven't been paid for last year from February through June. Is it going to be similar delays this year?
We hope not. So the reason,
Sarah, you owe me a lot of money.
I don't know who Sarah is. So our goal is to have that not happen. And so what we're going to be doing is we're onboarding a CRM. So the email and the Google Drive and the Google Sheet was tedious and laborious and inconsistent. And so we have entered into contract with a CRM called Submittable. And that will be the process wherein everything will go, communication will flow. You'll be able to make amendments, which we have typically not been in favor of because it's a hard copy process here in the government. So those things will be able to easily be remedied. And so that's our goal. So we apologize for the delays. I will also say this. We appreciate your patience. And we also appreciate the criticism. Like, I'm not afraid of taking it across the chin. But I will also say that I'm extremely grateful to my staff. They have approximately 70 contracts. And for up until last year was only 2 of them. So if you imagine that you had 70 folks that you had to pay individually doing all different things, I'm just really grateful that I still have them. And so although there is a frustration, which I can 100% understand, what we're trying to do is we're increasing our staffing and we're trying to use technology so that we can not have this happen again. So I just want to say thank you. So we're gonna try to work quickly, and I'm gonna give you some tips on this too. So we're talking about reimbursement. They've divided you all up amongst themselves. So each of them is a third of you. So they're going to be your points of contact. My advice, this is my advice to you, tips about how to make this happen faster is, let's say you're going to submit an invoice. This is what I would do if I were you, knowing who we are. Can I be honest? All right, this is what I would do. I would schedule a 15-minute conversation before I submitted my invoice. Because basically what happens is you get a pre-approval in a way. Patrick, can I have 15 minutes? Let's walk through my documents. We walk through your documents and I can point out, this is wrong. Or you need to fix this. Or this all looks great. What happens is if you all were standing in a single file line and you walk up to me and say, here's my document, and I'm like, this is what's wrong with it, and you leave, where do you go? That's what happens. It's a lot of you. So it's not like we're holding your spot until you come back. There's the person behind you who would be upset if you cut in because they're like, I've been waiting in line. So my recommendation to you is, unless some of you are doing just straight payroll, which is very simple, but if you're doing supplies and other things and it can get a little more in depth, and even if it wasn't, my advice to you before you submit or after you've submitted, hey, I would like to have 15 minutes with you. But I would do it before, because wouldn't you like to know before you press send, I saw 2 things you needed to fix. And so when I see it, if I'm reviewing, we had a 15-minute conversation. I told you 2 things that I noticed that might cause problem with me approving. And then you actually do submit. I'm like, I already talked to this person. The 2 things I told them to get right is good. And then I can expedite it. But what happens is if you submit and it's wrong, I'm going to tell you it's wrong, and it'd be like, why is it 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks later? I submitted it. It's because there are other people ahead of you. That's what happens. So my advice is, it's worth, you may not think it is, in my opinion, it's worth going and say, you know what, I'm going to invest 20 minutes so I don't have 25 days. You don't got to do it. That's just what I would do to kind of ensure it, because that way you can kind of get through some of the questions. So.
Sorry, lots of questions.
This is y'all's meeting.
Okay, let's assume that we request the advance.
You have a contract.
We have a contract.
Okay.
Let's say it's a month from now, we have a contract, we request an advance, and for some reason we spend 23% instead of 25 by the end of the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that we have to wait till the beginning of the third quarter to request the next 25%?
Second.
No, I see what you're saying. If you are doing advances, it's whenever you finish spending the last advance that you received.
So if it's off the schedule, I can still submit an invoice to say we've spent 25%. Now send me more money, please.
Correct. Okay. But we have to go through the same process and reconcile everything that you've submitted proof of that you've spent. So it also, the first advance, when you're doing advances, you usually get pretty quickly because you just submit a letter to us. We say, thank you for submitting this letter. Here is your money, right? But when you're doing your second advance, we also go through the reconciliation process. So that's why it can take a little bit, just because we have to then go reconcile, send it to finance. Finance cuts the check and sends it off to you. But yes, it does no longer follow the timeline. It's whenever you as an organization spend the money.
When can we expect the progress report and the invoice template to be sent to us?
My guess is you'll get those within the next week, because I think they've already shared. Have we already shared those?
I think so. If not, we will be sending a recap of this meeting.
I think you're going to get all the documents.
The Calendly slots, everything in the next email. Yeah. And it's also on our website too. If you go to grants and then grant reporting form, everything should be on there that you would need. But we are using, I think we mentioned a few times already, Submittable. So hopefully it should make everybody's process easier, and it's easier for us to get a ping when you submit it as well.
Do we have any other questions before we move on? All right. Now we're going to get into the specifics of what we're looking for when it comes to receiving reimbursements for your spending. We have here the 4 major categories that are broken down. And I also want to reiterate at the top of this, you do not have to build a budget based on whatever you see provided in your packets. Your budget can be specific to your program. If you come to us and say, I want 100% of my budget to be salaries, that is acceptable. So make sure that your budget fits your program, and it will also be relatively easy for your organization to report back to us on. We'll get into indirect in a little bit. But the 4 main things that we see from organizations are invoices and receipts, right? So if you're going to get an invoice from an organization, say you bring someone on to do mental health therapy on site, we need to see that there is an invoice, that it is signed between the two organizations, something saying, we did this work. We need to see when, where, how much it cost, and then we would need to see a check that went with it, right? That corresponds to the invoice, however you paid them. If you did Zelle, if you did Venmo, if you somehow did PayPal, right? We would need to see proof that that money was then sent back to them. If you give me an invoice that just has a paid stamp on it, I will send that back to you. That is not good enough proof. So we need to see corresponding money going back out. For payroll records, we went over it a little bit. Payroll pay period reports are sufficient. So whatever your payroll system, as long as you can get that information to us and it shows staff time, what they worked, and how much you were given out, that is perfectly fine. When we get into copies of checks, we need to make sure that those checks specify the organization that it went through, the amount matches the invoice. I can't tell you how often I get organizations that send me a $10,000 check, and they're like, well, this was broken up into like 17 different invoices that I have here, and nothing matches. And so we cannot have that. If you have a check that went out as a copy of an invoice, we need to see that specific check to that invoice. And then finally, we have timesheets, time cards. When we're talking about timesheets, we also want to make sure we're talking about if you're using cash for payment for vendors, if you're keeping records of volunteers, if you're going to do stipends, those sorts of things we need to see time cards or timesheets for, right? If most of your program is going to be going towards stipends or gift cards for participants for the youth, and you say, Nick, we're going to do $40,000 for that, right? I would say, that's amazing. How are you going to do that? You tell me. And then I would need to see proof that youth were attending for that time to receive those stipends, and then proof that you sent that out. Oftentimes, people will go and get, my apologies, I've never used it. I think they're like cashier's checks or whatever they're called. Like different forms of checks that they give out, or like money proof. Yeah, like money orders, different things that they can give, and use that as proof that they have been given money to the youth. And if it is something along those lines, we would also like to receive a signature from the youth saying that they received the money for stipends. Are there any questions on that? Because I feel like there's going to be more when it comes to budgets, so please ask now. Yes, one in the back. Okay.
So if we did a gift card for participant incentives, and we send it through Amazon, Amazon will notify you, say, oh, they received it. Thank you. They received the gift card. Is that good enough or no?
Under most circumstances, I'm going to say no. We would have to connect offline about that in very specific circumstances. But if it's during your programming, this is now a 3-year term, unless the youth, that's like a final payment out, then no. We would need to see something that shows like some sort of receipt that the youth signed saying they received that gift card. Other question? We had one here. Questions?
I thought for this grant we couldn't give youth stipends and things like that.
Oh, you can. Part of your grant can go to youth stipends. Okay. I think the only portion of your budget that is limited, only 10%, if I'm recalling off the top of my head, can go towards indirect costs. So your rent, your utilities, things that directly support your program, that's the only portion of the grant that we limit. Outside of that, you can build your budget.
It was 20.
Huh? 20? 20%. My apologies, sometimes ECI or RFCY. But yes, that's the only portion of your budget that is limited. Like I said, if you want to do all salaries, you can do all salaries. Any other questions? Yes.
Do you have to include the benefits as well into the salaries, or it could be just salaries?
If you tell me that the cost that you give me from your payroll report is included in benefits and it shows that, then that's fine. I do not. You can call it staff salaries and benefits. And just include
my question is I don't want to ask for benefits for reimbursements because we are self-funded and it's so hard to do that. So we just want to report salaries.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Great. Would you request a letter that we sign? We have a grant with the City of New York, and we do the same. We don't report the benefits, just the salaries. Mm-hmm. But they ask us to sign a letter saying that our company provides benefits to this staff and we pay for their benefits outside of this grant.
We'll connect offline about that when building your budget, because there's probably going to be more that will go into that. And that will be a part of your specific contract when built.
Okay. Thank you.
Two different questions. One is, do you require documentation of like FICA and fringe, anything that's beyond salary related to payroll costs?
Don't understand the question. Can you repeat that?
I mean, for example, like the payroll taxes and workers' comp, like things that are required payroll costs. What documentation do you require that?
I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to Patrick for that specific question.
So if you asked the question about payroll records, submitting payroll records, so that would be fine. The payroll records, if they're identifying the benefits, if you're claiming benefits, right, then you could include the payroll records, and the total accounting for whatever the aggregate for salary and benefits, if it's reflected there, and if in your budget you tell us salary and benefits, when we are reconciling, we'll include those costs.
Okay, so those costs have to correspond to the amount in our invoice or in our reimbursement request?
Yes.
Precisely. Okay.
No. So here's the situation, right? So if hypothetically, let's say your salary and benefits line was $25,000 and you gave us proof because you have 3 employees of $37,000. We're only going to count the $25,000, but you've given us excessive proof, so we don't have a question when we're doing. He's like, oh, he's giving us well above what he needed to. So it doesn't got to be. You don't have to try to figure out to the penny. I'm going to give them payroll records that match $25,000. You just need to give us payroll records that either match or exceed whatever that budget line is. So you don't have to get fancy with it.
I understand. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I had another unrelated question. Does the city of Richmond have regulations around work permits for youth under 18 who are in school?
We do. Tamara's here. So if Tamara, you want to stand up? Tamara is our employment and training director. She's a deputy director for community service, employment and training. And if you have questions about that sort of thing, she is the expert.
Okay, so if you have anyone that is under 18 in school, they have to have a work permit. It's a must. And the work permit is based on their grades. It will determine how many hours they can work. There's a lot of stipulations about what tools they can use, the hours, which I mean not by the number of hours, but the times that they can work. So make sure you get work permits if you're working with someone in school under 17. Under 18, sorry. Or even, under 18, yeah. Stipends is not working. So there's a difference between wages and stipends. Okay.
Thank you, Tamara. And if there are questions, grab the lady in green.
Sorry, did you say now is the time to ask for more detail around the payroll records, or is that covered later?
If you want to get into it, we can take some time right now if it's a question about it.
Right, so yeah, thank you. I think it was brought up a little bit earlier, and I don't exactly know, I hope I'm explaining it right. So I guess what's the difference between a timesheet for like a salaried staff member and the payroll record?
I can tell you on my end what the difference is from when I look at. If you submit to me a written record of everyone's names in pen, written down in what days they worked and what hours, that would be the timesheet versus a payroll pay period report tells me this individual worked this many hours, this pay period. So it's not per day, it's just per the pay period that you're going to be reimbursing for.
And additionally, the payroll record will include their gross payment, their net payment, the benefits that I guess are applied to them personally, and as Nicholas says, it will also show the period that this particular if it's a payroll record for a series of months, it'll designate which months and for how much, and it will also include overtime. It will include a lot more information. So the payroll record to us, if you're allocating for staff, is golden to us. We love payroll records.
If it is for staff, we prefer payroll reports versus timesheets. Timesheets we get into for stipends and youth, but if you can provide payroll reports to us, we much prefer that, much easier to reimburse you for.
And that's not an Excel document that you made yourself.
Yes.
We want to get that clear because we get those.
A lot. We get them often.
That's
if it is
not
not
a payroll
from
record.
your whatever record keeping system that you use, I know there's ADP, there's a bunch. If it is not from them, then we will kick it back.
Thank you. And then do you need, so for instance, some staff, maybe half of their caseload is Richmond and half is Oakland. Would you need us to then say, hey, here's the, the 2-week time period they worked, 50% is allocated to Richmond? Do you need any like timesheets demonstrating the specific Richmond portion?
So the budget that you create when we do it, it will designate what the FTE rate is for the person, right? So if you tell us, your program manager is 0.5 FTE and you've allocated $10,000, and let's say they're getting paid, and you show us they're getting paid hypothetically 10,000 gross, right? And you give us 3 of those, they've clearly exceeded that because you've given us basically $15,000 over 3 months that when they've only allocated 10. And so we can do the math. But in our scope drafting session, that is where we're going to get into kind of the nitty gritty around what the FTE looks like.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course. We have a couple questions in the back on that side.
I just want to clarify, when you say payroll records, do you mean pay stubs or do you mean a report that we run from our payroll that exports into an Excel spreadsheet?
It will export into what looks like the Excel spreadsheets. A payroll pay period report is what we prefer. You can give us pay stubs. That's what you have as an organization. If that's easier for you, you can submit that to us. We prefer the payroll pay period report.
Do you guys cover holiday time and pay time off, or is it only direct service hours? Some grants will cover like holidays or.
If it's a part of your salary,
then it covers the salaries.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions before we move on? All right. We're going to talk a little bit about what the invoicing and reporting will look like, going back into these narrative reports that we've discussed a little bit. And we're going to talk about submittable and what that will be like. We are very, very excited to roll this out. It will essentially be a resource for you all to track the reports that you're submitting, the invoicing that you're submitting. It'll stop you and say if something's missing. It tells us and alerts us when you've submitted something. We can tell you how often you as organizations have submitted stuff, and then we go back in and something's missing. And so we're very, very excited to roll out submittable. To talk a little bit about what needs to be going into there, we have the invoice template. These will be the items that you'll find there. It'll be any template that'll be used for your organizations when submitting these quarterly invoices, or similarly, when you are going to be requesting another advance, you'll say, this is how we spent this much money from our budget. For the quarter breakdown will be however time period you break out the 4 advance payments. Your line items must always match the budget specified within the contract that you are going to be building with us. If you build a single salary and benefits line, we do not want to see an invoice returned to us that has each individual worker that you are trying to claim salaries for. You should include it into one. If you have program supplies and food as one budget line, we want to see it budgeted that way in the invoices that you are returning to us when you are submitting payments. Oftentimes what we do as staff is, if budgets are wrong, we spend a lot of time going back and forth, and it causes delays because we reference your budgets. We come back, we have to find the allocated money because it's not following the same way you stipulated it would in your contract. And so we really want to reinforce, please make sure that when you are invoicing us, it matches the budgets in your executed contract. We also have electronic copies for you all that will be sent out after this meeting. If they haven't already been received, you'll receive the scope of work, you'll receive a copy of the slide deck that you all have in your hands, insurance requirements, the invoice templates, and the progress report templates. So you all will be familiar with them. We're going to talk a little about submittable.
Sure. So I'll move through this quickly. The reporting is going to be done through this process, through this portal. So submittable is a web-based grants management software system. And for some of you that maybe have applied for grants, maybe you've also used them if you've used or applied for any state grants, because I think the state of California uses them as well. And so we went through an RFP process and they were selected. And so they are onboarding right now. And so within the next 4 to 6 weeks, they are going to be live. And so your reporting will be done through this. So they're going to send you templates, but you won't be, when you actually report, you won't be uploading templates. documents, you will actually be typing into fields or copying and pasting into the fields. The invoicing, you won't be uploading an invoice template. There will be a template on the software that you will be keying in the numbers. It will auto-calculate your budget, and each line will be there, right? And so you will say what your, I guess, expenses were against the line, and then you're going to upload and attach to that line all the backup documentation for that particular expense. So we're going to send you documents that could be printed, but in actuality, they're going to be replicated into Submittable. Submittable is also going to be the place where you can communicate with us, right? So, and this is, I think, something I'm very excited about, just because I don't think anybody needs another email. I know I don't. So we're going to communicate via Submittable. So, and what it does, in my opinion, is it builds accountability. Number one, we can be accountable to you about what we said, what we didn't say. You can also be accountable to us about what you said, when you said it, and how you said it. So there is no, I thought I sent that. Oh, we're going to point you here. We're going to look here. Because this thing is going to be tracking every single communication and the times. It's going to be date stamping, time stamping. There won't be any confusion, and so we can be accountable to each other as it relates to communication. So once this is up, and it'll probably be early March before you actually have to submit your first set of quarterly reports. If you're submitting your quarterly reports in March, this will be your home base, and you all can sign up as many users as you need to. And I think it'll be, I'm just really excited about it, because the Google Sheets and Drive, it was a headache. It was a headache. And so we're coming into the 21st century as we exit. So Submittal is going to be online. Additionally, with the evaluations, your client level data reporting will be done through this platform, right? And we're going to set up the template that Alexis and Nicole are going to create for you all, that Google Sheet. The Submittable per client data reporting is going to look identical to it. So you can upload into Submittable that document, and it will align. So you don't have to do any kind of transferring over. Feel free if you'd like to, but there's no requirement. It will also, right, as Nicholas says, it will ping us, right? So you won't need to send an email that says you did something, and you will get a communication, as will we. And again, all the communication will be handled through the grant management software. We're probably also going to host a training that you don't have to attend, but we will probably have a video, right, that's screen shares and walks you through how to set up your account, how to do various portions of the software, and there'll be short videos. So it won't be, oh, there's a 35-minute video that you got to walk through. There may be a series of 10 short videos that say, this is how you do this part, this is how you do this part. So if there are various individuals within your organization that might be responsible for different components, they're not required to watch a 45-minute video. You can just have them assigned to the portions that are relevant to their task. And so this will be coming to you in about, like I said, 4 to 6 weeks. So we're talking with them, we're building with them in the implementation plan. I don't know if there are any questions about this part. I'm excited. I'm so excited about this.
We hear you about
Like
getting
happy,
paid, so this
glad,
is supposed to help us.
Joy. Go ahead.
Sorry, I actually want to go back a little bit to the documentation for invoicing.
Sure.
We have like subawardees written into our grant.
Say that one more time.
We have subawardees or
Subawardees,
like grantee.
okay.
Yeah. So for them, do we need to be gathering all of their invoice, like all of their documentation specifically, or are we getting an invoice from them? Like, what level of detail of documentation do we need from our subawardees?
Okay, so the way that they would be listed is, we're going to go into contract with one of you. Some of you are collaborative organizations, and there's like a group of you. But one of you is the lead applicant. The lead applicant is who we will be in contract with. We are going to pay the lead applicant. Now, what you all will need to provide to us, as you did in your application, is if you have a fiscal sponsor, we'll need that. But if you are a collaborative, you submitted a letter of agreement, right, that says, hey, we are in partnership with this organization, and that LOA outlines the terms of you all's agreement, right? So if something goes sideways, they can't come to us, right? We're going to say, you signed this. But if hypothetically you apply for a grant and you apply with two other organizations, right, they are going to be listed as contractors in your budget. They will be listed as contractors. And you will say, hypothetically, the $100,000 amount, hey, we're going to do salary and benefits, right? But they're not going to be salary and benefits even though they are. They're going to have a contractor's line. And let's say that your salary benefits is $25,000 and you have two contractors, two organizations, and they both are getting $25,000. So you got $75,000 aggregate. When you submit your documentation, you're going to provide to us an invoice from them to you with their backup documentation that says what they did and that you paid them if you're doing reimbursement. So it's got to be the invoice, and it's also got to show money going out. So you can't just submit an invoice. You got to show us that you paid them the money that we gave you.
And we need all of their background documentation.
Yes.
All of their invoices, if it's.
Yes.
All of their invoices, if they are buying supplies.
Yes.
Their payroll records.
Yes. Yes. And that's another thing, because of submittable budget amendments, which were a pain in the neck, are going to be a lot easier. Because sometimes at the end of the year, what happens is you find out you didn't spend as much as you thought you were in a particular line. And then you would call us and be like, we're not changing it. Because you asked us to change it in March, and now it's November and you want to change it again. You get one bite at the apple annually. But because of submittable, we're going to be a lot more flexible because it's just we'll have access to the budget and it'll be a lot easier. For us, budget amendments were a manual process. I needed my finance department to approve a series of documents in triplicate. It was, working in government it's no joke.
Does that include budget adjustments, like if we don't spend all of year one, like across years?
So that's a great point. So you're asking good questions. And so in the past, you all were awarded the hypothetical $100,000 and you had to spend $100K every year. We understand that it doesn't always work that way. And so during your scope drafting session, let's say you got $300,000, but you really only need 75 your first year. You need 125 your second year, and you're going to use 100 your third year. We're going to be able to do that kind of division for you, given. So you might need a little bit more. You might say, hey, Pat, I need 125 my first year, I need 75 my second year, and I need 100 my third year. Right? So we're going to be able to do, this is why I'm excited about this. The reason we kind of locked y'all down is because we didn't have the capacity to actually do the fancy stuff. So when we get into the conversation, we'll be able to have that. It's like, Pat, I need 150 my first year, right? Because we're going to do a big lift off. And then it's going to scale down a little bit more, scale down a little more. Somebody might just be a flat 3 across 100 annually, but some of you might need to tweak. And so during our scope drafting, we'll be able to have that conversation, and you can give us that kind of nuance based on what your organization might need. We're really trying to, you guys have been kind of talking to us this whole time, and we've been taking it in, even though it doesn't seem like we have. And so we really want to be a little bit more flexible. Tiffany.
I get to build that. Just a follow up to that. If you don't spend it all the first year, will it just roll over to the next year?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, we've been fighting with finance to make that happen, because that switch over annually, if you've been in our system, it's not fun. It's not fun. So I've got my finance department to be able to roll you all over. We've been fighting. Just because if we can make it, and this is what it is, if we can make it easier for you, then it makes it easier for us, right? But when it's hard for y'all, then it really becomes hard for us. And so I'm just like, we can't stop the money at the end of the year. And that's why we went to a calendar year for you all. Number one is to allow for summer programming, which a lot of you got split. in our old system, if you were doing summer program, you couldn't do a full summer program. So we pushed it so we could do a full calendar year. And we've talked with them about rolling your purchase orders over so that come July or of the subsequent year, we can just pay you versus we need all these documents again, which is not fun for us. I know it's not fun for you. Yes, sir. Oh, we got a question. He's over on the right.
Can you raise your hand? I can't see.
What's your name? Greg.
Excuse me.
Okay.
So this may be a little outside the scope of what we're talking about right now, but since you mentioned that wrinkle, which I didn't know about.
Which wrinkle?
It's critical. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Which wrinkle?
The fact that if we don't spend all the money in our first year's allocation, it can roll into the second year.
Mm-hmm. Now, we might have questions about why you didn't spend it.
Right.
Right? So if you tell me during our budget session that you needed $75,000 and you only spend $25,000, that report, it better be fire. Because I'm going to have a lot of issues with why you told me you needed $75,000 and you didn't spend not near it. And this is where my evaluators come in, right? What happened, right? That was the case. And we recognize that there might be challenges and snafus. God knows the city of Richmond needs grace as it relates to giving out grant dollars. So we are going to extend it back to you, but we want to have a conversation about what actually happened. The same for your reporting, right? So some of you are going to be serving hundreds of kids. Some of you are going to serve maybe less, but you're going to be doing something maybe a little deeper, right? You might be serving 35, but you're doing something extremely wrapped around. Some of you are going to serve 2,000 or 3,000. If those numbers are off, like we want to have a conversation about what happened and do we anticipate it happening again? And so it's not we don't want to do a gotcha because I don't like that and I don't want to treat people that way either. It's just what happened. Do we need to evaluate? Do you need as much money as you said you did? Right? We're going to ask some questions.
So then I guess the other side of my question is, how flexible will the contracts be in terms of allowing us to, for example, adjust our scope of work? For example, if we were to get through an unexpected development, a different funding source or some matching money that we didn't expect, because we're on a school year cycle. We're not exactly on the calendar year cycle.
Got you.
Would that then allow us to change our participants' data and open a program at another Richmond school in addition, using that money?
That would be a case-by-case basis. We would have to have a conversation. So the RFCY Oversight Board and the City Council approved us to enter in a contract with you based on what you wrote in your report. I recognize that things can change, and so there probably is some flexibility, but that's where us being humans and not AI is a powerful situation, is that we can have a conversation and see, is it really that different or is it just a different location, right?
Yeah.
He's not serving 6th graders now, he's serving 4th graders now, doing the same thing. Or he's got money, he's going to do 4th and 6th graders, right? But if it's a situation where you were going to be, teaching mental health, right, and supporting mental health, and now you're giving away bicycles, I'm going to be like, I don't know, right? They thought we were going to be helping, now you just handing bicycles out randomly to people. That's a big difference. And so there would need to be a conversation.
Thank you.
I think that's it about submittable. Somebody's got the clicker.
I have it.
Okay.
All right, moving along, we have the progress reports and review reports, which I feel like we've covered in depth at this point. Again, at the end of your reporting cycle, whenever that is, whether you're asking for a new advance or the quarter comes to an end and you're asking for reimbursement, you are not eligible to receive money until we have that information. And in submittable, it'll also ask for all of the required information about the participants in your program. That is included as a stop before you are eligible to receive funding. We thought a little bit about contract amendments. We've been jumping around. The contract amendments are going to be a little bit easier. As Patrick said, for all of our returning organizations, we can do it in real time on submittable. Before, organizations were able to do it once. Now you all have a little bit more flexibility when discussing with us whether you're going to be moving items around in your budget, whether it's going to be a change in scope of work. And so those are conversations that we would like you to schedule with us and say, we would like to have a discussion around a contract amendment so we can figure out why, and then you can request it in submittable and we'll move from there. We are delighted that we finally have additional staff. I am so excited. Lupe, myself, Caitlin, we are planning on going to site more than once and visiting your programs in action throughout the coming calendar years. What we also want to say to that is, please invite us to events. We understand that you have graduations, different events like weekend celebrations. Those are all fantastic things. If you want to invite us to something, please put it on a calendar invite to us. But we want to see your program in action, right? We are going to show up on Tuesday at 10 a.m. and see if it's what your scope says it's going to be. And those are the day-to-day site visits that you're going to be seeing from us and when we're going to be walking around.
Yes, so we do. So as Nicholas says, we want to see your program day to day. I know you want us to see the great celebration at the end of the year, but that's not your day to day. We want to see what you guys do day in and day out. I would advise you, if you're going to invite us to things, this is my recommendation to you. Send us a calendar invite. Please don't send an email. People send emails saying with an attached flyer, and then they have all the stuff that they want to do. We get 1 million emails a day. If you would just take what you were going to email us and stick it in a calendar invite, guess where it appears? On my calendar. And if things are on my calendar, they are alive. Like I see them. Emails get bumped down, and around. My recommendation is put the flyer in a calendar invite, put all the blurb that you were going to put in the calendar invite, and then invite us and send the calendar invite to us. You ain't got to, but I get 1 million emails, and that email that you sent and you all spent so special, and it's got colors and graphics and sound and music. I'm not gonna catch it. I might see it and then forget it because 5 other things happen. But I look at my calendar every night before I go home, and I look at it first thing in the morning. I'm like, okay, this is what we got going, right? And I will say again to Nick, what we want is to see your program in action. So what some people might consider the mundane, every day, we're working with the kids doing this 1, 2, 3. The year of the end is great. The block party is great, but that's not your program, right? That's not where you're spending the majority of your hours doing. You're sitting down with kids, and your staff are sitting down with kids doing very, very specific things. That's what we want to see. And I'm also going to tell you this. We're going to pull up on you unannounced. It's coming. So I'm just giving you a heads up. Because you told us Tuesday, 4:30 to 6 at that location. We might just pop up. Y'all got quiet? Y'all said y'all was going to be there. we might just pop up. We gonna schedule some stuff, and then we be like, I'm in the neighborhood. Let me go and stop. It's going to happen. Right? Because we want to know the thing that you put on your website and the thing that you said you were going to do, you're doing it. Whether we tell you we're coming or you're not. So, just a heads up. We want to see the mendacity, right? That everyday workman-like stuff that you all are doing with your young people. All right.
We have some best practices here, just in terms of ideas to keep in mind when you're going to be thinking about your grant, when building your scopes, when talking about your budgets. We really want to reinforce that every dollar spent, we as staff will reconcile. These are public funds that we're giving out as grants, right? So we take it very seriously when we are going through and reconciling, and I'm looking for dates, and I tell you that 1 out of your 274 Amazon receipts is out of date. We got to look for those dates, even if it's $5. So it is something very important that you keep in mind when building out your scopes and your budgets. All of the information on the spending that you do, that you submit to us, the reports that you're sending in, that is all subject to public record requests. Just so you all are aware of that if you weren't. The information is also shared with our oversight board and with city council. Oftentimes, because of how busy y'all are, our oversight board doesn't have the chance to get in depth with you, right? So what we do is we bring this information back to them. When they ask us about an organization, we can show them photos. If you submit them, please submit photos. Please, we love photos. We will bring that at meetings. We will talk to them about the good work that you all are doing if you are putting that in your reports. So we really want to reinforce that you keep that in mind when you are building out these narrative reports, and that they're not 2 sentences. I can't tell you how often I get a grant that's worth $200,000 and they say, program was great, kids had fun. We need more than that. Like, I need more than kids had fun. I want to know if there was a hiccup, why. Finally, something else I really want to recommend, this is going back to the way that you're keeping track of your financial records. If you are handling receipts, we need itemized receipts. Please take photos of them. Because if you lose that receipt and it's a hassle for you to get it, I can't reimburse you for a receipt that you don't have. We have had grantees previously lose receipts, and we understand that that's a horrible thing. I will accept a photo of the receipt if it has all the information that I need on it, right? So something that we really recommend is that if you have individuals on site who are out buying supplies or food or whatever it may be, they take a photo of it, send it to your program director, because that's very easy record keeping for them. We will accept those photos. I don't know, Pat, if you want to add in with any other best practices. Okay, perfect. Glad to hear that. The final thing that we really want to touch on is you are required to maintain good standing with the Secretary of State and Department of Justice throughout your grant. If this lapses at any moment and we check randomly, it's also going to be built into Submittable, so we'll see it on Submittable, and you will as well. Your contract will be considered paused. You will not get paid. You will not receive any services. You do not get to do anything until we see that you are once again in good standing with the California Secretary of State and Department of Justice. And if you made it this far, you are in good standing. But we just want to make sure we reinforce that you have to maintain those standards. Are there any questions on that? Perfect. Finally, we have some next steps, just information about what's going to be coming up. You're going to once again get that email from us. You're going to get a copy of the slide deck. You're going to get the information about your scope drafting session. You're going to be able to schedule those meetings with us so we can meet and discuss your scope. You are going to have all the required documents that you're going to see in Submittable. If you are not a vendor with the city already, please make sure you fill out and return to us the W-9 and the vendor information. We need that for you to be able to enter into contract with us. We also will encourage you to start talking to your insurance providers now. And then finally, we're going to email the slide deck and then all contact information for our staff.
Oh, one last thing I forgot to mention earlier was I do recommend I will also include a copy of our direct deposit form. Note that you can't email that form back to us. Like, we can't accept it that way. You either have to mail it physically to our finance department, or often if you just drop it off in person with a voided check, they'll take it that way. But it's the easiest way to get paid, because sometimes mailing takes a hot minute. So if you want to get direct deposited whenever we have our Wednesday weekly check runs, please make sure to submit that. So I will email that as well.
That's a fantastic thing to bring up.
Yeah.
On that point, also our finance director will call you and check in to make sure that when you're submitting as either a new vendor or swapping from mailed checks to electronic deposits from us, you will get a call and you will not be approved until you confirm that you are who you say you are on the information that you are sending in to us. So keep in mind when you are filling out those documents. And with that, here's our information. As we have talked so much, if there are any other questions, we want to open it up for questions now. We as staff will also stay after time. We have the room booked for a while. Please feel free to linger, come up to us, ask questions as needed.
Thank you for being here for 2.5 hours.
And also congratulations once again on receiving the grant. We are delighted to work with you all.